St. Paul, of course, echoes that in 1 Corinthians 5 and 6. He speaks about people who don't listen to rebuke. If they live in manifest immorality, they're to be excluded from the fellowship of the church. And we read about that actually happening to a fellow in the book of 1 Corinthians. St. Paul also points to the church as integral to God's plan of salvation, because it's in the church that we can visibly see the reconciliation of disparate groups like Jew, Gentile, slave, free, male, female. And in doing so, the existence of a visible society manifests God's plan to the world, including the powers and principalities in the heavenly realms. That's the angels and the demons. St. Paul tells us in Ephesians 3, verse 10, that it was God's plan that now through the church, the manifest will of God should be made known. All right, so it has to have there's a visible representation of God's will present in the actual society of the church. That this church is supposed to be united in faith and practice and worship is another consistent teaching of the New Testament. So in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 16, for instance, St. Paul points to rules about decorum in worship, in the liturgy, and he says if someone wants to be contentious, this is 1 Corinthians 11:16, he says, know that we have no other practice, nor do the churches of God. He's here, of course, speaking about individual individual congregations around the ancient world that were all uniform in their practice of the faith, in their mode of worship. It also held with respect to their doctrine, because he exhorts us in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10, that we agree on everything. It doesn't qualify. It says agree on everything. Now, the principle of denominationalism runs flat contrary to that. It's not possible for denominationalism to foster agreement on everything, because it's predicated on disagreement. The Baptists believe one way, the Presbyterians believe another way. That's why there are two different denominations. We also know that it contradicts the manifest will of Christ, because in John 17, Jesus prayed to the Father and said, may they be one. Those who believe in me through the word of the apostles, may they be one as you and I are one, Father, so that the world may know that Christ came forth from God. Well, we're talking here about what's visible to the world, right? The unity of the church as a sign to the world of the divine authority of Jesus Christ. That's not possible if there's not some mode or medium of that visible unity, the society that Christ founded, which is called the church. So a lot of evidence that Christ intends a visible society in which to reconcile all these disparate parties and bring unity. Of course, Ephesians chapter 4 tells us there's one faith, one Lord, one baptism, one mystery there, not 50,000, but just one of them. Now, what's the evidence that that community is continuous with the Catholic Church? Well, the evidence is historical, largely, that Christ states his intention to found the church on the rock of St. Peter, says the gates of hell will not prevail against it, and he'll be with that church until the end of the age. And unless Jesus is a liar, then we should be able to locate that church historically. We see it there in the pages of the New Testament, obviously, but as soon as the apostles died and passed on, unless Jesus is a liar, that church has to have had a continuous existence into the 2nd century. Well, lucky for us, the heirs of the apostles, the successors to the apostles, left records, the writings of the church fathers, and they identify themselves as such, as standing in direct continuity to the apostolic college. Men like Ignatius of Antioch, or Irenaeus of Lyon, or Clement, the bishop of Rome, who testify that they received their charge from the apostles, or Polycarp, bishop in Smyrna. And then we can see continuity from that community on into the 3rd century, the 4th century, the 5th century. Now, the various denominations that exist in the world today, they don't trace their origins to the 1st century like that, to the foundation of the church by Christ. All of them can claim a human founder at a particular point in time. So the Baptists were founded in 1609 by John Smith. The Mennonites, of course, by Menno Simons. The Lutherans by Martin Luther, and so on and so forth. But it's only the Catholic Church that stands in that direct historical continuity and is the recipient of the promise of Christ that he would be with them till the end of the age. Now, as Catholics, confessing as we do the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, does that mean that we think guys like Harold are just outside the pale? Not at all, not at all. Because again, remember, as Catholics, we believe there is only one church, right? There's only one church, there's only one faith, one Lord, one baptism. And anyone that comes into communion with Christ, especially through baptism, is united to that church, if only imperfectly, right? So Harold, was baptized. He doesn't know this, but he was baptized into the Catholic Church, because there's only one church, and the entrance door into that church is baptism. So it's a Catholic sacrament. And all baptized Christians come to share, if weakly and in an imperfect way, in that unity of the Catholic faith. Our only prayer, our desire, is what's only a partial unity might become a full, visible unity, so that we really can agree, as St. Paul tells us we ought, on everything, on everything. Harold opened up the show, opened the call, by giving thanks that we could find some common ground, and I share him in that thanksgiving, share with him in that thanksgiving. Our prayer is that we would find more than just a little bit of common ground, but we might come to share entirely one faith, one Lord, and one baptism. Appreciate the call, Harold. Thanks so much. I think that's the Catholic answer to the questions that you raised. Appreciate it.